Hi there, welcome to Tabletop Sagas. Brett here. It's taken a little longer than I would have liked to get this video out, but I promise that it's well worth the wait. I've been painting like a bit of a madman for this project, so I thought that it was high time that I gave you an update on what I've been working on. And when I say madman, this is what I'm talking about. Here is everything that I've painted for probably the last month or so for this project, which works out to finishing off the first Maniple with these two units here and this one here, and then getting my second one about halfway with these two units here and this one here. So let's take this in order and I'll show off the finishing bits of the first Maniple first, then we'll go through what I've learned and the refinements that I've made along the way. Here are the first of my triarii. The old guard, the most experienced men in the Maniple, and the ones where if they get in the fight, you know the battle is serious. At the time of painting these, I didn't have any of the Little Big Man Studio transfers that I intended to use for these, so they are painted in the same way as my earlier minis, in that they just have red shields. And while I do love this colour, I do plan to go back and paint these and put transfers on them, all that sort of stuff, but more on that later. To help with seniority, I have decided to do a full command on these, so a centurion, a signifer and a trumpeter. Not sure if that's exactly what they're called, but that's what I call them, which takes up nearly half the unit and does make things a little bit easier for the painting. Interestingly as well, the trumpeter back here isn't actually a spare miniature for this kit, but just a set of hands, the trumpet, and then a right leg that you kit bash onto one of the standard bodies by cutting off the left arm and the right leg. It's a bit of a strange way of doing it, but I do actually kind of appreciate it. The upgrade option means that I don't have to use them in a unit if I don't want to, but if I don't use them, then I don't lose out on a mini for the unit. Also, to show more experience and unity for the men, I've decided to do away with having different coloured clothes for each of the guys. I think that as the years have gone on, the men, they would get more cohesive working together, form a bond that I wanted to find a way of representing in these minis. I could have done this by using a matching shield pattern as well. Certainly that would be a clearer option, but I chose against that, as went for a more subtle approach. And because of the reduced amount of cloth under the chainmail, I also decided against highlighting that cloth as well. My intention there was to save a little bit of time, which then does admittedly get eaten up as soon as you start putting transfers on them. And with that note, here we have the mid-level troops, and most notably I was working on these by the time that my shield transfers arrived, and honestly I kind of hate them. Now when I say I hate them, I mean I hate them because of how much better these look than any other transfers that I've used before. I can't not use these now for this project, and if I didn't use them, and minis that I haven't used them on already, I can see a massive drop in the finished quality, which is really annoying because honestly cutting out all of these transfers and sticking them on is really time consuming. It takes me hours to do to put all of these on, and they are really annoying and fiddly, so you have to try and cut them so that they'll fit as close as possible so there aren't any gaps, which will show white paint through, because you do need to use these over white. And then there's the cleanup afterwards. You do have to be careful because there are 3 different shape transfers for these. So for reference, there are the triangle ones. These are not triangle, hexagon ones, which are pretty easy to spot from the shape of the boss and the cutout on the shield transfers. Then there are the thinner rectangle cutouts. Now these go on the shields which have 2 rivets on them. And then you have the wider ones that go on the shields with 3 rivets on them. If you mix these up, particularly these two, actually I suppose all 3 of them actually, you will get quite noticeable holes and gaps that you will need to then later paint in, which is what I have done on some of these. Because these represent the mid-tier troops as well, I have added in some minis with the heartplate armour rather than chainmail to the unit. If you do add one of these per base, then 1 pack of each of the Victrix Roman Legionnaires, Legionnaires 1 and Legionnaires 2 will balance out to the 2 full divisions that you need in Hail Caesar format. It does also as well help to add a little bit of variety and makes them a little bit easier to stand out when compared to the Triarii. I am noticing that a lot of these units are looking quite similar, so that is definitely something that is worth considering if you do this project yourself, making sure there are those little elements that are going to help you distinguish the Principe from the Triarii from the Hastati from the Principe, and so on and so forth. I've chosen to do that by representing this command unit as only a Centurion and a Signifer, the others as using all 3, and then the least experience as using none. I've chosen to represent it with different qualities of clothing, and then different divisions with the different head plumes, and mixing all of those together. That kind of helps, I think, at least from my perspective, to distinguish these well enough on the battlefield. And switching over now to look at the second Maniple, so far I've managed to get the Triarii and the Hastati painted up for this division. This time I'm not going to go through each unit base by base. These I've just painted in the same techniques as I have for the first division. So I have them primed in grey with a white zenithal highlight, then mainly relying on contrast paints to do some of the heavy lifting, and with each model probably taking me about an hour or so to paint start to finish. That's not including building or basing time though. I did consider for these as well using different shield colours to denote different divisions originally, but I found that when I went to get the Little Big Man Studio transfers, they have plenty of options in red, and then they have a far more limited selection in other colours. So to keep the shield variety of designs that I wanted, I settled on sticking with red for my Romans. This also does give me a possibility in the future of using mixed colours or other colours to denote allied maniples. So people that have maybe Etruscans or Samnites who have joined the Roman Empire and are fully integrated into the Roman maniple system. You will notice as well that to show off divisions, I instead decided to use the plumes. So these plumes on the helmets are all red, whereas the first division were all grey. This is definitely not historical. This is one of those small but clear details that allow them to be easily identified. This is quite simply a compromise that I've made to aid with gameplay. And if I mix these plumes colours as an accent colour for the commanders, maybe on a banner or the clothing that they're using, something like that, then this will be a really clean way of showing divisions for gameplay. An interesting thing that I did here as well, which really didn't work, is that for the Hastati, I tried to glue the minis throwing peeler in the front ranks to make it look like maybe they were preparing for an oncoming charge or something like that. This definitely was a bad idea, and I should have tested this first with some blue tack or something. Trying to fit the back guys in around the peeler was just a pain, and I had to force them to go in a really weird way, and that you can see here bunched up in a way I really don't like, and this one's here off center, and it's just, it doesn't work for me. Certainly not as Romans trying to show a regimented force. Now, with the basing for these, I did continue to use my usual Geek Gaming Scenics base ready range. This is their Mediterranean ground, Mediterranean soil, something, Mediterranean something. I do think it works really well. I did also decide against using the Jarvis tufts for this. As I mentioned in my last video, I don't massively rate them. I think they're a little bit too big and a little bit too uniform in shape to really provide some nice variety and look realistic on a base. So I will be looking at getting some more, probably from Gamer's Grass. Those are my favourite tufts and ones that I do rate as above all else if you can manage to get hold of them. So that's where I'm up to so far with this project, with the first Maniple done and the second one nearly done. What's next is, well, obviously I need to finish off the second Maniple. I want to do the Velites and the Principes and get the units done first. Then, as a little bit of a reward, I think I'm going to be painting 2 command bases to go alongside these forces. Those are going to be miniatures from Victrix Miniatures. They are really nice. They are currently sat upstairs waiting to be painted. If you do want to see a painting guide for those, do let me know in the comments below. I think they could be really interesting to show how I paint up this force and try and get it on the table nice and quickly. Once I've completed those, then I do plan to expand into a 3rd division. That division is specifically going to be a cavalry division. Overall, between the 2 units of infantry, the command and the cavalry, I do think that there is about 6 to 8 weeks worth of work on this project still to go for the first pass. Then I do have a few ideas about how I might want to expand this in the future. I think that I would probably want to do 2 more divisions of infantry. That would then give me 4 divisions of infantry and a 1 division of cavalry. And that, I think, is more than enough that I'm going to need for Romans. I then might supplement that with a couple of divisions of allies. They would be allies in a maybe that have not fully adopted the Maniple system, and there are some great kits that Victrix do for that. Recommend definitely going and checking them out. Overall, I think there's probably about 3 to 4 months worth of work still to do on this army, but that's obviously going to be spread out over a while. I'll just add to it as and when I feel like. So the New Year period is well and truly done by this point, and I'm settling back into everything in my daily life, which has definitely had a knock-on effect to this video. I've had parts of this done for a few weeks now, and as well a couple of other videos that I'm editing as well. But finding the time to get these finished off has definitely been more difficult than the back end of last year. That said, I did want to take some time and thank you for checking out the video. We've been continuing to grow here at Tabletop Sagas at a pretty nice rate, and I'm really hoping that that can continue in the coming year and years beyond. I also want to take some time, and have been taking some time, to think about the direction of the channel for the coming year. What parts of the hobby you'd maybe most be interested in seeing. If you have stayed around to this point in the video though, why don't you let me know down in the comments below. Are there any types of videos that you prefer? Do you like seeing painting guides or these more project showcase type videos? What would be more helpful for you? Also, how often do you want to see those updates? Would you prefer something more like what I've done today, where there's 6 units to go through? Or would you prefer shorter, more regular updates after, say, only a couple of units are finished? I'm not sure, but yeah, your input from the community would be massively appreciated with that. Also, hey, while you're down there, why not hit that subscribe button if you haven't already? It costs you nothing, and it's definitely a big help for growing this channel. And if you've enjoyed the video to the point where you're watching this far, then you'll also get to see when I release new videos as well. So thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm Brett here at Tabletop Sagas, and I'll see you back here soon for the next one.